Welcome to Elected, a podcast for women in and around politics. I'm your host, Sarah Elder-Chamanara, and this week our guest is Alison Tedford. In the spirit of reconciliation, I'd like to acknowledge that I live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. This week, my guest is Alison Tedford. She is now a best-selling author, a marketing consultant, and lives in Abbotsford, BC. Her work has been published on Al Jazeera, CBC, Upworthy, Today's Parent, and she, as I just mentioned, has a new best-selling book, Chronic Profit, which is available now. So, Alison, welcome to Elected.
Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it.
And I failed to mention one of the most important things also is that you are the creator of the podcast name Ellected.
That was so fun. I'm so thankful that we got to collaborate on that.
I know. I'm so thankful too, because it brought us together in a more meaningful way. And I'd love to know like your thought process and like how you ended up coming up with the absolutely most perfect name for the podcast.
I was trying to think of words that were both feminine and political and how they could work together. So when I saw your call for a name, I was just played with it for a while. I really love naming things. Like I do that sometimes in my business for brands, for either their promotions or actually their whole companies sometimes. So it was kind of a fun exercise and it was exciting.
Well, because I received quite a number of suggestions, but when I saw yours, it was one that I remember getting it during the day, and then that night, because just like laying awake thinking, well, what else would you be thinking about? But it just kept on coming back to me, and it was like, this is the one, and it was just so perfect. And I'm so happy that you suggested it, and that it's just perfect. It's simply perfect. It's the perfect name.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was so glad that I got to be involved.
Yeah, no, I love it. And maybe we can work on something else in the future and you can name it as well. Who knows?
I love that.
So besides, being the genius behind the name of this podcast, you just recently announced that you have a best-selling book on the BC bestsellers list. Can you tell me and everyone listening about Chronic Profit and what it's about?
For sure. Yeah. Chronic Profit is about how to build a business while you're dealing with persistent pain. So it looks at how to simplify, systematize, and self-care to be able to grow your business even when you're facing health challenges. And it was based on my own experiences as someone who has a hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but also draws from the experiences of over 20 other entrepreneurs and professionals who work with people who have chronic pain or who experience chronic pain themselves, and the systems and processes that help them function.
That's so interesting. And it's such an interesting topic. And so did you write this during COVID, or was this something that started much before?
I got the book contract 2 weeks before the pandemic started.
Oh, wow.
And then it was due mid-October. So yeah, it was definitely, it was a busy book writing year. I actually wrote 3 books this year.
Did you? So I know that you just recently announced that you have a second book coming out, which the name of it is
Stay Woke, Not Broke.
Yes. When is that one coming out?
It should be April 2022 at the latest.
Okay. And can you give us, so obviously the title is a hint, but what's the elevator pitch for Stay Woke, Not Broke?
It is about how to integrate social justice into your business.
Oh, wow.
The things that matter, how to build an anti-oppressive business. And it looks at case studies of businesses that have integrated their values into the way they do life and business. And so that's one that is in progress and will be out in April. So I'm really excited about it.
And so that one's totally done, written, lockdown.
And so, well, it's in progress. It's done.
Okay.
It goes to the editor August 15th.
Oh, wow.
And then, so then we go through our process and it'll be ready to be on. It's actually like we had a bit of a longer tail on this one, actually, because we closed it in, I think, December or January. So,
Well, that's definitely a book that I would be interested in the context of Madam Premier. Because social justice is something that is definitely a value that is fundamental to the brand and to the community, and advocating for social justice issues. And I did my degree actually in social justice, well, in justice studies, but in social justice at Royal Roads.
Oh, amazing! That is so cool.
I did my my final paper was on using alternative dispute resolution as an alternative to the criminal justice system in instances like specifically the riots after the Canucks lost the playoffs. Instead of sending through the criminal justice system, using ADR as a process.
Oh, that's so cool. I actually write for Royal Roads.
Oh, do you? Yeah, I was always such a beautiful campus, and yeah, I had such a lovely experience there. Well, I will definitely be buying that book. So you said you actually wrote 3. So what is the third, if you don't mind sharing?
I actually wrote 2 other ones.
Oh.
So Stay Woke is actually my 4th book.
Oh.
I wrote a textbook with a nonprofit called Taking It Global. And we turned a series of video tutorials that were recorded by Indigenous creatives and turned it into a print resource.
Wow.
So that people could learn how to podcast or how to do graphic design or make resin jewelry or write songs, whatever kind of creative expression. So that was a really fun project that I got to work on. And I didn't realize it was going to be a book. I didn't find out it was going to be a book until it was printed. And I had an Amazon author credit. It was a very big surprise. But yeah, so that was fun. And then another book that I wrote over the pandemic was I had a client and her mom was actually stuck in Canada because she normally lives in Belize. And she was visiting and then COVID hit and she couldn't get home. So while she was in Canada, she decided it would be a good time to reach her life goal of writing her first book. So I worked with her on a memoir project to tell her story of traveling the world as a midwife.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Traveling the world as a midwife. I didn't know I didn't know that was a career option. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it was really fun.
So you've written like 5, it sounds like almost 5, maybe 6. I'm not sure. I've lost count of how many books. So where is your current book that has just been published and is a bestseller, Chronic Prophet, where is it available if anyone is interested in reading it?
It's available. You can order it online through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, Chapters. And it can be ordered into pretty much any independent bookstore.
Okay. So. And the subsequent titles, will they all be on the same platforms or?
Create to Learn, the book that I wrote with Taking It Global, is available on Amazon only.
Okay.
And proceeds from that go to the Youth Leadership Fund that they support. So that's really cool. And then I'm not sure exactly where Stay Woke is going to be. For now, it's available for pre-order on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble.
Oh.
But I'm not sure exactly how far it will get distributed yet because it's very early days.
Is it available on Amazon.ca as well, or is it just .com?
When I looked at it last, it was listed on Amazon.ca, but I couldn't order it through the app. So
I'll have to wait and check then.
Yeah, so it'll come eventually.
That's great. I'm just so happy. I love seeing your success, and it's so incredible to see. And I mean, how many more books do you have in you? It's limitless.
Yeah, I've pitched my next one, so we'll see
Oh,
if
wow.
it goes. We'll see.
That's incredible.
Thank you.
Um, so something else, and you've already touched it on the textbook, but lately something that you've been very passionate about speaking about publicly is the discovery of the 215 children in Kamloops, and also sharing your own background. So how has this how have you been navigating the trauma of what's been discovered and moving forward?
It's definitely been a challenge. I've had to pace myself. I've worked on residential school issues for, the past 19 years, essentially, in terms of my first job with the Canadian federal government was in Indian Residential Schools Resolution Canada. And then I moved on to corrections and I worked with survivors there who were either staff, elders, or inmates. And after that, I worked on a couple of promotion projects for movies that dealt with residential school issues.
Hmm.
So definitely it's been something that's kind of woven its way through. And more recently, I'm doing some communications work around language and culture preservation and promotion. So um, it's really personally really important to me. And my grandfather attended St. Michael's Residential School. So it has been a really tough time. I didn't imagine that scope in terms of Kamloops, and it was really tragic and upsetting and sad. But mostly it was really odd because I just felt like we should have paused and we really didn't. Like life just went on. So,
Mm-hmm.
I still had to, I still had my big to-do list and my client list and my grocery list and all of the things that still had to happen. And it felt like we didn't take a moment. And I mean, some of the requests that I got in that time frame were really wild. Like I was getting PR pitches because I have a blog. Um, would I like to write about student safety? Would I like to write about surviving college? And I was like, ew,
Yeah.
no. Like I'm busy talking about people who didn't survive elementary school,
Mm.
and I'm talking about kids that didn't get protected. So it felt really um, difficult when the standard processes of doing business didn't include checking in with what somebody was up to currently.
Mm.
So that was definitely challenging. I mean, I've certainly dealt with pitches that were like personal and off-putting before. Like I get pitched by the diet industry and it's like I am an eating disorder survivor and I'm very publicly anti-diet culture. So that's always uncomfortable. Or, I think I got a pitch one time that was like, why you can't get pregnant. I was like,
Oh,
wow, wow.
that's such an just in every context. There's no that's just so inappropriate.
Right. So, yeah. So I think that has been challenging is that like a lot of our processes are not trauma informed
Mm.
and don't encourage people to even just check in with the people we're trying to ask to do work for us and see if it's a good time or if it's in alignment with what's happening.
So for anyone then wondering how do you reach out in a trauma informed way? What would that look like?
I mean, I always encourage people to read the room first. Go, if you're going to reach out to somebody, go check out their Facebook, their Twitter, their Instagram, see if they have anything going on. Have they recently had a like a personal loss? Or, what are the things that they're sharing about? What are the things that are um they're prioritizing? And think about like, if does my brand message fit in here?
Mm.
Right? Like, would you want your brand message sandwiched between the current events that are being discussed? And is it in alignment? And is it a reasonable intrusion at this point? Does it look like it would be welcomed? And is it um, is it consistent with what this person does and believes?
Hmm. Well, I mean, to receive a request around school safety, immediately following the discovery of 215 children. Now we're at, I think, 572 at last count that I saw. Um, that's just, that's, yes, school safety is important today. But there was no safety for those children. They were, it was a genocide.
Yeah, and just yeah, I was really horrified, and I actually responded and said, actually, I'm quite busy dealing with all the genocide right now, and I can't talk about school safety at this moment.
Yeah.
And they actually like argued with me and tried to pitch me off.
Really?
I was like, I just said, please stop talking and take me off your list. I
Yeah.
can't believe you're arguing this with me.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. That's just, going back to what you said, read the room. That's, well, you would, that's a very good sign that you just don't align with whoever was writing that email on behalf of whomever, right?
Exactly. No, for sure. It was a good clarifying moment. Values. And yeah, so I think that's really, I think it's an important way to take care of each other just generally, is like, if you're going to ask somebody to do something, find out if it's a good time, see how they're doing, if there's anything that you need to be mindful of in communication.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just being more considerate. And also, I think we're just also very used to asking people to do things that are, that use their expertise, their time, and we just expect it to be done.
Yeah.
And that's something I've had, people, that's very common to see, like, even like creators of things similar to what I do with Madam Premier, but they'll be like, no matter what it is, if it's earrings or, photography, it'll be like, well, tell me which camera you use, which lens you use, tell me which spots you go to photograph. And do you mind telling me how else you do everything? And, there's significant pushback. And it's, if I came to your job and asked you to sit at your desk and, to watch you type in every email or whatever it is that you're doing, would you think that would be okay?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely weird, the sense of entitlement that some folks have. So, I'm always happy to provide a lot of free education on my social media channels. But yeah, to get aggressively pitched about something, especially when I've been really clear it's not comfortable, it was a different experience for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really just a reminder that we all need to take care of each other right now. It is. And this is the beginning, right? Like, this is how many schools of like 139, like, this is going to be a few years to come where we're going to be getting these confirmations of what happened. And it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be sad. And it's important to kind of have a plan as to how you're going to approach it, either like emotionally for yourself or from a communications perspective for your business. Because this is really just the beginning. And it's important to not lose sight of the fact that, like, as these numbers increase, all of these were people, these were somebody's kids, and somebody's aunties, it's just
it is overwhelming. And I say that with, with a lot of privilege, and seeing, the numbers are just staggering. And when we think about, like, we watch the news and you hear about, an accident, and, it might involve a few people, and it's definitely tragic. And, it's in the media, and it receives attention, and, and then people are upset about, if it involves, like, there not being a stoplight, or someone, someone being on a bike and a car not paying attention to where it's going. But when you think about what happened in those places, and the lack of education, and the amount of denial that people still have around what happened, and it's how do you I don't know. It's just it's mind blowing in terms of thinking about people and how they still don't get it and why it's so hard for them to think about it and think that it actually happened.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's been really like horrifying watching the discussion of the semantics of, is it really a mass grave if people were added to it at different times, or is it just a poorly marked graveyard? And so having to have that conversation around like, what does a mass grave mean? And it means like some human rights violations happened and something atrocious happened, and the manner of concealment is the overall, like, it was to not share what was happening, and that's why that's what it is. It's not that, everybody died at the same time and therefore, right, that isn't the criteria that we use to evaluate it. And like, why are you invested in minimizing the enormity of this? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. Yes, exactly. Why are you invested in concealing it? And to what end? I don't, the, I feel like, and especially now around conversations around, yesterday was Indigenous Peoples Day and Canada Day is quickly approaching. And even last year was the first year that I didn't celebrate Canada Day in a way that I previously had, because I've had the opportunity to do a lot of learning and to think about what it means to be Canadian and what my, called what that identity means and who was hurt as a result of it.
yeah, it's definitely a weird thing, Canada Day, as an Indigenous person. And I'm actually working on a piece on this for today's parent right now. But yeah, I mean, people ask, what are you doing for Canada Day? I'm like, we will not be having colonizing day parties. Our subject here. So we will just
Yeah.
not be. We will have ice cream and sit outside, and we will have the day off. But
Yeah.
it's definitely, and particularly this year, it feels quite heavy. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's what I've told clients is like, if you're going to celebrate or not celebrate, be able to explain what your decision was and what led you there. If
Mm-hmm.
you're, an immigrant who's glad to be starting a new life somewhere, if you were a refugee who's glad to have found safety, like, tell that story, or, if you have, you're proud of whatever Canadian history that you are celebrating on that day. Um, but certainly when I look at, you know, residential schools, when I look at a lack of clean water on reserve, when I look at,
Mm-hmm.
murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls, and recent allegations around IUDs for children
Mm-hmm.
in foster care, like, I struggle to find the things that I would want to celebrate, unfortunately. But it's hard when there was a TRC report saying that all of these graves existed and nobody looked. So how do you
Mm-hmm.
celebrate a country that didn't want to fund looking for your relatives?
Well, and not just relatives, but there was someone as young as 2 discovered in Kamloops. Those aren't, it's not, um, it's not right. It's simply not right that, that we're not, that, that a search hasn't already started at each of the schools. Um, and I don't even like using the word schools, because what did they teach? But it's perplexing. You're right. There was no. I will be using Canada Day as an opportunity, another opportunity to reflect um, on the opportunity for reconciliation and what I can do personally and professionally. Um, and I hope that other people think about Canada Day differently too. It doesn't mean that we're not happy and proud to be Canadian, but it's also, I think for me personally, it's about thinking about acknowledging that and taking the opportunity and time to talk to my own children about the day and how it means different things to different people.
Yes, yes, certainly. I mean, that would be the thing that I would want most, is that for people to have empathy, that not everyone is excited today. Everyone has their reasons not to be excited, or to be excited, right? Like, I want to celebrate with people who are happy to be here because, their situation has improved greatly and they have opportunities and they feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
I love that for them, and I definitely want to honor that. And I just know that for some other people, it's kind of a difficult time. So
Mm-hmm. Especially now. So yeah, if maybe anyone's listening and, if you choose to celebrate Canada Day in the same way that you always have, but you see that someone isn't, or is maybe having a harder time, but just be respectful of that and approach it with sensitivity rather than, hey, why aren't you coming out to party with us? Which it's COVID anyways, so hopefully there's not a lot of traditional partying going on. But yeah, no, I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think it should be an opportunity to pause, and to reflect.
yes, yeah, I think that it's a good time to think about what's happening and what we can do differently in the future and how we can support each other through this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's totally about what we can do differently, because doing the same thing has not gotten us very far. So
Yeah, for sure. And also to take time for advocacy, because often there's a lot, and like there isn't a lot of time in your day-to-day life when you're busy going to school or going to work and you've got a day off, and there are people who are not releasing key documents that are necessary. There
mm-hmm.
are things that need to happen. On what other planet do you get to decide if you're going to, release evidence that is about a whole bunch of people dying? Like, I don't understand how nobody's getting a door knock to produce all of these things. Like, it's surreal. And then and where else would you have information that there are all sorts of people who died, and like, don't you normally go look at that point? Like,
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, when every level of government, law enforcement, and the church are invested in not acknowledging something, then obviously, I mean, I personally believe that that's obviously still the case. Otherwise, those documents would have already been turned over.
yeah, exactly. So definitely we have some time set aside
Right?
to be able
Yeah.
to do some
That's
things.
the perfect day to email your member of parliament, your MLA. I mean, really, I think at this point, putting pressure on any elected official to demand accountability, because I mean, the church doesn't, who do they answer to? I mean, yeah, it's they should be answering to the families, is what I believe.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the other piece, is that if you're part of a church that has an ability to be supportive in some way in providing documentation, then to hold your leadership accountable.
Mm-hmm. 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 That's a
That
very good point. If you are a part of a church, then there's no reason why you can't ask your pastor or your priest or whatever person is in charge to be supportive of that movement. Yeah. So Canada Day is now a letter writing campaign day.
We've decided.
Yes. Alison and I have decided that it will be a day of action, rather than a day of, well, whatever you do on Canada Day. It looks so different for everybody. Um, that's thank you so much for sharing sharing your thoughts on that, and also giving there was some good tips in there if you have a business and are thinking about Canada Day and how you present it online as well as in person.
For sure. And even how you ask your Indigenous staff to participate,
Yes, that's another very good point.
right?
Yeah.
If you're asking your Indigenous staff to hang up your Canada Day decorations, it might not be, you might want to check in with the comfort level around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point as well. I'm hoping that there's a lot about this in your book, which again is called Woke Not. No, tell me the name again so I don't get it wrong.
Stay woke, not broke.
Stay woke, not broke. Will it touch on things like this in it?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely will. It talks about how to navigate social issues and how to talk about the things that matter to you. And looking at, some of the common objections that people have to sharing those things
Mm-hmm.
and some of the reasons to consider doing so anyways. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
this will
Yeah.
definitely be part of that, given recent events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always interesting to me as someone who does actively post about all kinds of events from around the world. And then I go on my personal Instagram page and I see people that I follow who are seemingly operating in a world where no injustice exists. And that's really frustrating for me. And I've tried to be vocal personally about saying if someone, is remaining silent on these issues on at times like this, then you can either ask them politely, but it seems like they all have a very common, like, oh, it doesn't fit with my content, or I just don't know enough about it to talk about it, or, it just doesn't, they just don't answer. You can unfollow them very easily. It's just like one little button click, and you don't have to be in that space anymore. Because if they're not responding to your messages or telling you that they don't know enough about it to talk about it, um, but they're definitely paying attention to their following counts.
Yeah, I think that there's a good opportunity for dialogue. And I think asking the questions is important too, around like, because sometimes people will, maybe they aren't posting, but maybe they're donating or they're volunteering.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to get like a whole picture of like, or what areas that they tend to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good context to see what matters to them and
Mm-hmm.
where your alignment is.
I had an interesting experience very recently after the domestic terrorist attack in London, of the Muslim family that was murdered in Ontario. And I shared something on the Madam Premier account, and someone messaged me almost right away. They don't follow me, but they were somehow able to find me, and they took took issue with the fact that I hadn't said Muslim in my post, and it was simply just an oversight on my part. It was just, my husband is from Iran. My, his family is obviously Muslim. It was, in my own way, that was a very difficult moment, and I had tried to express myself and had unfortunately left out that one word. And the way that they came about it was really actually kind of traumatizing, because it was like I felt I was being attacked for and they just wouldn't stop talking, saying, why did you do this? And I explained myself, and it just got to the point where I just it made it so much worse.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've definitely had some of those difficult interactions too. When I talked about a recent kind of controversy around a public figure, and the way they were deleting comments from marginalized people who were trying to educate them about something that they had done, and I had somebody coming at me telling me I shouldn't be speaking on these things, and I had to say, like, are you telling an Indigenous woman that she shouldn't be saying that marginalized people should not be silenced? And the response is, well, like, was I supposed to ask you? I'm like, no, like, look at my bio. It's
Mm-hmm.
very, very right. But I think approaching these things with curiosity and compassion is
Mm-hmm.
definitely the best way to go. It's very like, these are emotional issues, and we are all humans having human experiences. And it's good to get more information before you freak out on somebody. Um, but yeah, and I mean, and the way that we interact and the way we support social causes can look different from a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I think it's important to talk about the things that matter to us.
Definitely, but with some sensitivity, and also without making bold assumptions that that are actually very general in nature. and thinking that someone has done something very intentional when, chances are it may not have been. So just giving people a little bit more space and grace.
Yes. Yes. Yes, definitely. Yeah. And it's a learning opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And every one of those moments is a learning opportunity, hopefully for everyone involved. To think about, maybe I proofread a little bit better. But also, when you're engaging with someone and you don't know who they are, take the time to check, to your point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's worth if somebody's post or feedback about an issue matters enough to be upset about it. It matters enough to take a look before engaging and see what the situation is.
Agreed completely. Well, I really respect the work you do. I will always be a fan of yours. Because you came up with a brilliant name, Ellected, for the podcast, but also I'm just such an admirer of your work and how you speak out, and your voice is on social media is one of authenticity, in my opinion. And it always stands out when I see your words because they create impact.
Thank you. I really love what you're doing, and I think it's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Inspires me a lot.
So. Oh, no, you are a source of inspiration for me. And every day, or in any way I ever get to type Ellected, I always think about you. So it's just such a wonderful way for us. I hope to, continue to develop our relationship and meet one day in person.
Yes, definitely.
Right.
That would be
because
good.
I think I told you this, but I was born in Mission.
Oh yeah. That's amazing.
So I am 100% a Valley girl.
Love it.
Yeah. So, I love the Fraser Valley.
Yeah, it's definitely a beautiful place, and it's a great place to raise a family. So very thankful.
We could probably have another conversation on the great things about living in the Fraser Valley, and then also the things that need to change.
Yes, I'm actually on I support a board of community members called Abby for All.
Oh,
about mobilizing non-traditional voters and youth voter participation and getting people involved with municipal politics. So
that's amazing.
It's a really, really great group of people, and I love getting to spend time with them and support them from like a communications perspective.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. Well, then if anyone is listening and they live in Abbotsford, Abby for All, because if you live in the Fraser Valley, you know that there are definitely things that we need to move forward on. Not just infrastructure like twinning Highway 1 between Langley and Chilliwack, but also societal issues around how the community has changed over the years and how it's not exactly keeping pace.
Yeah, there are some challenges and opportunities.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining me today. I've loved chatting with you, and I look so much forward to getting to know you better in the future.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So this was another episode of Ellected. Thank you for listening today. And of course, a special thank you to Alison Tedford for joining me. And again, if you're interested in her current BC bestseller book, Chronic Prophet, and her next release, the one that she had mentioned, Stay Woke, Not Broke, which I will definitely be getting, watch for that in 2022. Until next time.